My name is Emily Hayes, and I'm 25 years old. 5 years ago, I stood outside my parents' ranch house in Bozeman, Montana, the bitter wind whipping snow across the open plains, their words hitting harder than any winter gale. "Don't bother coming back," they said, their voices as unyielding as the frozen ground. I was 20, head over heels for a guy they couldn't stand. That night, I turned my back on them, my boots sinking into the drifts, my heart pounding with a mix of rage and heartbreak. They figured I'd crash and burn, come crawling back on my knees. But I didn't. That rejection lit a fire in me, pushing me through storms, both the kind that blanket the Rockies and the ones that tear through your soul. Lies, deceit, and a near-fatal moment in that blizzard almost did me in. But I pushed through. 5 years on, they wished they'd swallowed those words. This is how I turned their cold shoulder into my fuel, and how they ended up paying for it in ways they never saw coming. Growing up in Bozeman, I always felt like I was chasing shadows in my sister Sarah's wake. My folks, Margaret and Robert Hayes, ran our modest ranch like it was their ticket to respectability in this tight-knit western town. Mom, with her no-nonsense attitude and endless to-do lists, dreamed I'd snag a degree from some fancy college out east and hitch my wagon to a star, a doctor, a lawyer, someone with a pedigree that screamed success. Dad, more laid back but just as stubborn, nodded along, his quiet approval sealing the deal. Their vision? A daughter they could brag about at the local rodeo or church potlucks. But I wasn't cut from that cloth. I was Emily, the wild card who never quite fit the frame. Sarah Jenkins, my big sister at 30, was their golden girl. She'd bagged a law degree from the University of Montana, landed a spot at a firm in Billings, and was engaged to a guy who ticked every box on Mom's checklist. Sarah's got her priorities straight, Mom would say, her tone dripping with pride, while I'd sit there at 18, feeling like a ghost at the dinner table. Sarah's trophies and diplomas loomed over me like storm clouds. Every time I brought home a B+, it was, "Your sister aimed higher and hit the mark every time." I'd bite my tongue, staring at my mashed potatoes, wishing the earth would swallow me whole. Dad would pipe up with, "Buck up, Emily. You gotta dig in deeper." As if I wasn't already giving it my all. Their jabs hollowed me out, a constant echo that I'd never measure up. High school was my escape hatch. I'd sneak off to the local diners, the feed stores, or the dusty trails along the Gallatin River, anywhere away from their eagle eyes. That's where I met Jake Thompson. He was 25, a ranch hand with rough hands and a steady gaze that pulled me right in. Jake fixed fences and tended cattle on a spread outside town, dreaming of starting his own outfit one day. He wasn't the polished type my parents envisioned, no Ivy League shine, no silver spoon, but he made me feel seen, alive. We'd park his old pickup by the riverbank, swapping stories under the big Montana sky. With Jake, I wasn't in Sarah's shadow. I was just me, and that was enough. When I spilled the beans to Mom about Jake, her face went rigid as a fence post. "A ranch hand," she snapped, her words sharp as barbed wire. Dad didn't say much, but his furrowed brow said it all. They'd haul me to family barbecues with Sarah and her fiancé, pointing out how rock-solid her life looked, how I should saddle up for the same ride. Either the Finjeka, saying he had grit and big plans. But Mom shut me down cold. "He's not in your league, Emily." Her eyes were like ice. My cheeks burned, my temper flaring as I pushed back, but it was like yelling into the wind. They saw Jake as a dead end, a detour from their grand design. Sarah tried to mediate, but it was half-hearted at best. "They're just looking out for you," she'd whisper on the side, her voice gentle but detached. She'd earned their thumbs up over the years. No way was she risking that. I was flying solo, caught between their blueprint and the pull of my heart. Jake became my sanctuary. We'd meet after my shifts at the local feed store, talking till the stars came out, plotting a life beyond their rules. I started staying out later, dodging Mom's interrogations, ignoring Dad's disappointed sighs. The more time I clocked with Jake, the further I drifted from home. But the pressure built like a gathering storm. One night, I overheard Mom and Dad murmuring in the living room. "She's flushing her future down the drain," Mom hissed, her voice low and cutting. "That boy's bad news." Dad muttered about needing to lay down the law. I stood in the shadows, my pulse racing, feeling like an outsider under my own roof. They didn't trust my judgment, saw me as nothing but a letdown. By 20, I'd had my fill of bending to their will. I craved a life that was mine, with Jake, free from their nitpicking. Little did I know, that decision would ignite a showdown that'd reshape my world. Falling for Jake was my first real act of defiance, but my family wasn't about to let it slide without a fight. Loving Jake felt like breathing fresh mountain air after years of stuffy expectations. By 20, I was over trying to shoehorn myself into Mom and Dad's picture-perfect plan. Jake, with his easy grin and visions of his own ranch, seemed like my golden ticket out. I began crashing at his trailer on the outskirts of Bozeman, a beat-up spot with creaky steps and a view of the Bridger Mountains. It wasn't fancy, walls thin as paper, a sagging couch, but it screamed independence. I'd toss a bag together, tell Mom I was pulling an all-night of studying, and bolt to be with him. Each time, her suspicion burned through the ignored voicemails. Dad's radio silence weighed just as heavy, his grunts louder than any lecture. Sarah sniffed out the truth. "You're dancing with danger, Emily," she cautioned one afternoon, her voice hushed as we sat in her SUV. She'd spotted me slipping back home at dawn, my hair tousled from a night with Jake. I shrugged it off, fed up with her lukewarm warnings. She wouldn't buck against Mom and Dad. So what did she know? I was tired of the charade. One weekend, I packed my duffel with essentials, clothes, a few dog-eared novels, some snapshots, and told Jake I was all in. His face lit up like the 4th of July. And for a heartbeat, I believed we could carve out something solid, away from the family corral. But in a small town like Bozeman, whispers travel faster than wildfire. A neighbor from Mom's quilting circle spotted me hauling boxes into Jake's trailer. By supper time, the ranch house air crackled with tension. Mom stood at the kitchen island, knuckles white on a dish rag. "You're shacking up with that ranch hand," she spat, her tone venomous. I froze, fork midair. Dad sat opposite, his expression granite. No trace of the guy who taught me to ride horses. "Emily, spill it," he demanded, his voice low but loaded. I nodded, heart hammering. No use denying it now. The blow-up was epic. Mom's volume cranked up, each word a lash. "You're tossing your shot at a real life. He's a nobody." "Emily, a nobody," I fired back, voice quivering. "He's got more heart than you give him credit for. You don't even know the man." Dad pounded the table, rattling the plates. "That's it," he growled. "You're making us look like fools." I gaped at him, pain knifing through me. Fools? This was about their image, not my joy. Sarah sat mute, eyes glued to her napkin. No backup in sight. I felt trapped, like a stray in a roundup. It was pushing midnight when the storm peaked. Wind howling like a coyote pack. Snow blanketing the plains. Mom jabbed a finger at the door. Face contorted. If you pick him, you're cut off. Don't darken our door again. Her ultimatum hung heavy. Dad loomed behind her, jaw clenched, not lifting a finger to rein her in. I waited for him to soften the blow. But nada. My chest ached with fury and betrayal. Fine by me, I shot back, voice barely holding. I don't need your approval. I snatched my duffel, yanked on my coat from the hall closet, and stormed out. Sarah trailed me, pleading softly. Emily, just say you're sorry. They'll cool off. I shook my head, tears stinging. They don't want the real me, Sarah. They want a clone. She grabbed my sleeve, but I shrugged free. No turning back. I stepped into the night, cold slamming me like a freight train. Snow swirled, clinging to my lashes, boots crunching fresh powder. I paused on the porch, gazing back at the glowing windows, warmth mocking my isolation. The solitude hit harder than the gale. I shouldered my bag and trudged toward Jake's trailer. No clue what lay ahead. Settling in with Jake felt like a fresh start, but it all crumbled faster than a dry riverbed in drought. After bolting from my parents' ranch, I hunkered down in his trailer, a snug spot with peeling vinyl floors and a window framing the vast Montana sky. It was humble, but it was ours. I felt unburdened, shed of Mom and Dad's constant side-eye. Jake droll and smelling of hay and sweat, his smile chasing away the sting of that eviction night. We'd whip up simple meals, beans and cornbread mostly, chuckle over my botched attempts at biscuits, and spin yarns about him owning a spread big enough for horses and kids. For once, I dared to dream big, on my own terms. To keep the lights on, I snagged a gig at a gas station on the highway into Bozeman, pumping fuel and stocking coolers. The pay was peanuts, but I stashed every cent, eyeing a nicer place down the line. Jake pulled double shifts on the ranch, often clocking out after sundown to mend extra gear. It's for us, babe, he'd say, planting a kiss on my temple before heading out. I bought it hook, line, and sinker, convinced we were building a fortress. 3 months later, fissures appeared. Jake started vanishing longer, fiddling with his phone like it held state secrets. I chalked it up to ranch stress at first, telling myself to ease off. Then bam, a cryptic text from an unknown number. Your man's playing you. Check his late nights. It dropped details about spots he'd mentioned as work haunts, twisting my gut like a bad rope. I glared at the screen, pulse racing. Who was this? A rival hand? A busybody local? Doubt rooted deep, chewing at my edges. I started spotting red flags. Jake ducked out for calls, murmuring too low to catch. His jacket left on the couch, once held a bar tab from a dive in Livingston we never hit, time-stamped for a work night. My brain churned, connecting dots I'd overlooked his flimsy alibis, the averted eyes when I quizzed his day. Nausea hit. I ditched everything for him, family, security, and now this? I craved truth, but dreaded the fallout. One dusk, I hit my limit. Jake stumbled in late, hair rumpled, a whiff of cheap perfume on his flannel. I stood arms folded in the tiny kitchen, voice steady despite the inner quake. Who'd you ride with tonight? His eyes darted, but he played it cool with a chuckle. Just the crew from the ranch. I doubled down, citing the text, the receipt, the whispers. His face turned stormy, tone biting. You're imagining things, Emily. I ain't up to no good. But his deflection rang false. A guilty plea in disguise. I didn't holler or sob. Something inside clicked. Quiet. Final. I'm out, I said, low and sure. Jake gawked, mouth flapping for excuses. But I shut him down. I bet everything on you. Gave up my kin for this. He lunged to grab me, sputtering apologies. But I backed off. I couldn't breathe in that trailer, surrounded by shattered dreams. I crammed my duffel with my stuff, the same bag from the ranch, and bolted. Jake's pleas faded as I slammed the door. The night air was crisp, stars mocking my solitude. No roof, no plan, just betrayal's crush. I'd lost my folks. Now Jake. Alone again. In the vast western void. That Montana winter bit harder than a rattlesnake. After ditching Jake, I wandered with my duffel. Betrayal's load heavier than the gear. Streets gleamed with ice. Wind screeching as snow entombed the paths. I needed shelter. A spot to regroup. But my gas station stash was slim. I slogged through the squall. Breath clouding. Aiming for a budget motel I'd heard about near the interstate. The trek dragged longer than expected. By the time I hit the bus stop on North 7th, the blizzard had turned lethal. Visibility zilch. The stop was a rundown shelter. Benches bare save for a few stranded souls. Fingers frozen. I slumped down, the weak heater barely denting the chill. My wallet held just enough for a couple nights' stay after grub and fares. Panic clawed in, sharp as thorns. I'd fled the ranch. Dumped Jake, now what? Despair peaked. I dialed home. Hands trembling. Screen flickering. Maybe they'd thawed. Maybe a night under their roof. Mom picked up. Tone curt. What now? Emily. I gulped. Throat knotted.
I'm stranded, Mom.
Storm's bad. Can I? She sliced in. You heard us. Stay gone. Your choice. Echoes of that porch showdown reopened scars. I begged Dad next, hoping for mercy. Emily, your mother's right, he said, flat as pavement. No more calls. Line dead. I stared at the phone.
Cold glass taunting.
Smaller than ever. Storm raging. Snow battering the glass. I huddled, bag at feet. Rejection's vice grip tightening. Stragglers kept distance, lost in their woes. Coat pulled tight. I fought shattering. Loneliness a chokehold. Time blurred minutes, hours. Storm's fury drowning thoughts. Teetering on surrender. Pondering freezing if I stepped out. Then you alright?
Mom.
I glanced up at a guy in a transit jacket. Badge reading Greg Harlan. Mid-40s. Weathered like old leather. Eyes kind. I shook my head. Mute. He eyed the chaos outside. Can't hole up here forever. Place shut soon. I muttered about no options. Voice faint. Greg didn't prod. Keys jingled. Shift's over. I'll drop you somewhere safe. Wary. But his calm vibe eased me. I trailed to his van. Engine warm. Snow merciless. But Greg threaded the ghost town streets, delivering me to a roadside inn. Rooms are cheap, he said. Chin up.
Kid.
Face the music head on. We all hit rough patches. I thanked him, voice cracking, stepping into the gale. In sign glowed faint. Greg drove off. A spark of hope pierced the freeze. After that blizzard ordeal, I vowed to rebuild solo. The inn Greg pointed me to was a stopgap, not home. My gas station savings covered a week.
Tops.
Betrayals lingered like ghosts, but I couldn't let him drag me down. Time to prove I could thrive without the backstabbers. I hit up my high school buddy,
Mia Ramirez.
slinging coffee at a diner in town. I texted from the inn, fingers still numb. Emily, where you at? Her concern leaped off the screen.
I unloaded parents' boat.
Jake's cheat. The storm. No pause. Crash at mine. We'll sort it. Next day, I landed at Mia's walk-up, cluttered with thrift finds and posters. She shoved a mug my way and a $200 wad. Take it, she insisted, eyes fierce. You're not riding solo. I balked, but she pushed. Friends got your back. With Mia's nudge, I scored a studio in a rundown complex. Walls thin. Sink drippy.
But mine.
Rent gobbled my cash. So I clung to the gas station gig, snagging overtime. Grind was brutal, long hauls, cranky truckers, but it floated me. Mia dropped by with burgers or hauled me to the diner when I looked ragged. You're built tough. She'd say, grin pulling me up. Survival wasn't enough. I craved more. Numbers always clicked for me. So I signed up for night classes in bookkeeping at the community college. Juggling work and homework was a rodeo.
But it fueled me.
The prof, a tough cookie with a soft spot for hustlers, spotted my drive. You got the goods. Emily, she said, sliding back a top score quiz with a nod. Her words stuck. Proof I wasn't just a reject or cast off. Then Sarah mailed a note, handwriting tidy. Sorry for the mess, she penned, sincere but guarded. Slipped in $50 from her pocket. Not parents. You're tougher than nails. A week later, her call. Let me help.
No cachis.
I thanked her, but walls stayed up. Family trust? Shattered after mom and dad's freeze out. I spent her cash on staples. Ignored follow-ups. Needed space to forge my path. Weeks blurred into months. Early rises.
Shifts.
Classes. Crash. Exhausted but fired up. Mia toasted over tacos. To you?
Eminencia.
You're owning this. I grin genuine. First in ages. Scars ran deep from Kin and Jake. But I inched ahead.
My pad. Job.
Studies, small wins. Evidence I could rise without the herders. Future unknown. But self-trust bloomed, one gritty step at a time. As the months rolled on, I dove deeper into my new life, turning pain into purpose. The studio apartment became my fortress, where I'd pore over ledgers late into the night, the hum of the college library still echoing in my ears. Mia's support was unwavering. She'd swing by with leftover diner pie, reminding me that real friends don't keep score. You've got that Montana grit, she'd say, her laugh cutting through my fatigue like sunshine through clouds. I started volunteering at a local shelter on weekends, helping folks down on their luck, single moms, drifters, people who'd hit rock bottom like me. It felt good to give back, to see my struggles mirrored in others, and know survival was possible. One crisp fall day, about a year after the blizzard, I got my first big break. My bookkeeping prof recommended me for an internship at a mid-sized accounting firm in Bozeman, handling books for local ranches and small businesses. It was entry-level, but it paid better than the gas station, and I could flex my skills. I quit the pump job, trading fluorescent lights for a desk with a view of the Absarika Mountains. The work was demanding, balancing ledgers, spotting discrepancies, but it thrilled me. For the first time, I felt like I was building equity in my own future, not just scraping by. Jake's ghost faded, but not without a final twist. Through the grapevine, Mia heard from a mutual acquaintance. I learned he'd been stepping out with a barmaid from that Livingston dive. The anonymous text? Probably her rival or a guilty conscience. It stung, confirming my gut. But it also freed me. No more wondering. He was just a chapter closed. I blocked every trace of him, focusing on my climb. Sarah reached out sporadically. Her messages a mix of concern and updates on the family ranch. "Mom and Dad ask about you," one read. I replied curtly, keeping distance. Trust was a bridge I'd burned, and rebuilding it wasn't on my agenda yet. 2 years in, I graduated with my associates in accounting, top of the class. The firm offered me full-time, and I jumped at it. Paychecks grew, enough to upgrade to a 1-bedroom in a quieter part of town. I even started a side hustle, freelance bookkeeping for startups, pulling in extra cash. Life wasn't glamorous, but it was mine, earned through sweat and smarts. Mia and I celebrated with a road trip to Yellowstone, hiking trails and soaking in the geysers, laughing about how far I'd come from that blizzard bench. But shadows from home lingered. Sarah's calls increased. The ranch was hitting hard times. Drought had withered pastures. Cattle prices tanked. And Dad's health was slipping, a bad back from years of hard labor. They could use help, she hinted. I felt a pang, human after all, but resentment held firm. They told me to stay gone, I reminded her. Still, I sent anonymous donations to the local food bank, knowing it'd indirectly help folks like them. It was my way of being humane without reopening wounds. Then came the mystery that shook everything. While auditing a client's books, a big ranch supply company, I spotted irregularities, padded invoices, missing receipts. Digging deeper, I uncovered a scheme skimming funds, tied to a shady supplier. My boss praised my eagle eye, and we reported it to the authorities. Turns out, it linked to a larger fraud ring operating across Montana and Wyoming. The FBI got involved, and I was called as a witness. It was thrilling, scary, testifying in federal court, facing slick lawyers. But I held my ground, logic tight as a lasso. The case made local news. Local accountant busts fraud ring. Suddenly, I was the talk of Bozeman. My name in papers. Folks clapping me on the back at the coffee shop. This brush with mystery ignited something. I enrolled in online courses for forensic accounting, blending my skills with detective work. It fit the drama of my life, unraveling knots, seeking truth. Mia joked I was turning into a Western Nancy Drew. Through it all, I reflected on the legal clarity that saved me, understanding contracts, rights, even during my eviction. In Montana, family disputes like ours weren't uncommon, but knowing tenant laws helped when I secured my studio. No squatters' rights nonsense. As success mounted, whispers from home grew louder. Sarah confided the ranch was on the brink, debts piling, foreclosure looming. Mom and Dad's pride had blinded them to market shifts. They'd refuse help from neighbors, echoing how they'd shut me out. Part of me wanted to gloat, but humanity won. I started researching AG relief programs, anonymously tipping Sarah off. It wasn't full forgiveness, but a step toward healing. 3 years post-blizzard.
You met Alex Rivera?
A wildlife photographer based in town. We crossed paths at a community event, bonding over hikes and stargazing. Alex was kind, adventurous, no baggage like Jake. Our dates were simple. Picnics by the Madison River. Talks about dreams. He encouraged my career pivot, saying, "You've got a knack for uncovering what's hidden." For the first time, love felt steady, not a storm. Yet, the family drama simmered. Sarah showed up at my door one evening, eyes red. They're losing the ranch. Emily. Dad's in the hospital, heart issues from stress. My resolve cracked. I invited her in, brewing coffee. We talked for hours, airing grievances. She admitted Mom and Dad's favoritism had poisoned us all. They regret it every day, she said. I nodded, tears welling. Revenge fantasies faded. Humanity called for bridge building. I visited the hospital the next day, heart pounding. Dad looked frail in the bed, Mom weary beside him. Emily, he whispered, voice cracking. Mom reached for my hand. We were wrong. So wrong. Words tumbled, apologies, explanations. Their pride had cost them dearly, legally and emotionally. The ranch was in probate limbo. Debts enforceable under Montana law. I didn't rub it in. Instead, I offered help. My forensic skills to audit their books, spot salvageable assets. It wasn't a handout, it was humane intervention. We worked together, untangling the mess. I connected them with legal aid for restructuring debts, clear, above board. Slowly, bonds mended. Sarah and I grew closer. No more shadows. The ranch survived, scaled down, a family effort. With the family rift easing, I leaned into my evolving career, blending accounting with investigative flair. The fraud case had opened doors. Firms across the West sought my expertise for audits, with a detective twist. I took a senior role at a consultancy in Missoula, commuting from Bozeman, handling cases from embezzlement in cattle ops to phony land deals. It was dramatic, poring over records, interviewing suspects, piecing puzzles under the big sky. One case involved a mystery heir to a mining fortune, unraveling forged documents that could have swindled a family out of millions. Testifying again, I felt empowered, my logic unassailable. Alex and I deepened our bond. He proposed on a hike in Glacier National Park, ring simple as the landscape. We married in a small ceremony by the lake, Mia as maid of honor, Sarah beaming. My parents attended, tentative but genuine. Proud of you, kiddo, Dad said, hugging me tight. It wasn't overnight magic. Therapy helped us navigate the drama, addressing favoritism's roots. Legally, we drew up fair agreements for the ranch, wills updated. No ambiguity under Montana probate laws. Clarity prevented future heartaches. But old wounds surfaced in unexpected ways. Jake resurfaced via a mutual friend. Down on his luck, ranch job lost to layoffs. Living in a trailer park, regretting his choices. He messaged apologies, seeking closure. I met him at a neutral diner. Curiosity piqued. He looked worn, eyes haunted. I messed up bad. Emily. Lost everything chasing fool's gold. His betrayal? A fling that fizzled, leaving him isolated. No revenge from me, I listened, then wished him well. Learn from it, I said. Humane, not harsh. The real turning point came when the ranch hit another snag, a legal dispute with a neighbor over water rights. Montana's prior appropriation laws were tricky. Bad advice had muddied their claim. Sarah called.
Panicked. I dovein.
Auditing records. Consulting experts. We won in court. Rights secured. Gratitude flowed. Mom confessed. We pushed you away, fearing you'd outshine us. Vulnerability bridged gaps. Dad shared stories of his youth.
Regrets mirroring mine.
We laughed, cried, rebuilt. 5 years from the blizzard, I reflected on my arc. I'd co-founded a forensic accounting firm, specializing in rural fraud, helping families like mine avoid pitfalls. Alex and I bought a cabin outside Bozeman, planning a family. Success wasn't revenge, it was growth. Parents thrived on the scaled ranch, volunteering like I had. Sarah left law for counseling, inspired by our healing. The light lesson? Family ties endure if nurtured with empathy. Pride blinds, forgiveness frees. I didn't gloat over their lows. I lifted them, proving strength in unity. Betrayals forge resilience, but humanity turns scars to stories. As my firm grew, I mentored young women from tough spots, sharing my tale. Storms pass, I'd say. Chart your course. Mia remained my rock. Our friendship unbreakable. Jake? He turned his life around, starting a small repair shop, heard through the vine. No bitterness. Life's too short. One evening, gathered at the ranch for a barbecue. Stars twinkling. I felt whole. Laughter echoed. Past dramas faded. We'd all paid prices, but emerged wiser. Legal smarts saved assets. Emotional ones saved us. Word count, 612, wait. This part is shorter. I need to expand to reach 1,000. Let me add more detail. Expanding. In the midst of this, a new mystery unfolded at work. A client suspected internal theft at their dude ranch. I sifted through digital trails, uncovering a bookkeeper's scheme siphoning funds via fake vendors. Collaborating with local sheriffs, we built a case. Arrests followed. The drama intensified when the culprit tried to flee across state lines. But federal jurisdiction kicked in under wire fraud statutes. My testimony sealed it, earning me a commendation from the DA.
Personally,
Alex and I navigated our own mini-drama. Infertility concerns. Tests. Treatments. Emotional roller coaster. But we adopted a rescue dog first, then pursued options humanely, focusing on joy over rush. It bonded us deeper. With family, we established traditions, monthly dinners, honest talks. Mom opened up about her own parental pressures, cycles breaking. Dad taught Alex ranch tricks, passing wisdom. Reflecting, the blizzard wasn't just weather, it was a metaphor for life's tempests. I emerged not vengeful, but enlightened. Lesson light. Embrace change. Extend grace, it multiplies. Thriving in my forensic world, I took on high-stakes cases that blended psychology and sleuthing. One involved a family estate in Wyoming, where siblings accused each other of tampering with the will. Diving into documents, I uncovered forged signatures via digital forensics, clear violations of probate laws. The courtroom drama was intense. Cross-examinations. Expert witnesses. We prevailed. Justice served. The rightful heirs restored. Media dubbed me the fraud buster of the West, but I stayed grounded, crediting team effort. Home life bloomed. Alex's photography business boomed. We traveled to shoot landscapes, my cases sometimes overlapping with his adventures. We welcomed a baby girl, Lily, through adoption humane process. Legal ducks in row under Montana family law. She brought joy, mending final family fractures. Parents doted. Sarah and doting aunt. No more shadows, equality reigned. Jake's path crossed mine once more at a town fair. He'd cleaned up. Shop thriving. Thanks for not holding grudges, he said. I nodded. We all deserve second chances. No drama. Just closure. The ultimate test. Ranch faced a corporate buyout threat. Developers eyeing land for resorts. Legally, eminent domain loomed. But I rallied community, filing injunctions based on environmental impacts, clear under federal acts. We won. Preserving heritage. Family united. Stronger. 5 years post-blizzard. Life's tapestry wove humane threads. Success wasn't solitary, shared. It amplified. Light lesson. Betrayals teach. But compassion heals. Choose empathy over revenge. It builds empires of the heart. In quiet moments, I'd hike the trails, reflecting. From rejected daughter to empowered woman, the journey proved, storms shape, but we steer the outcome. Family, once fractured, now foundation. Grateful for every twist.
Post-victory.
I authored a book, uncovering truths, lessons from Western frauds, blending memoir with tips. It hit shelves, inspiring readers. Tours took me across states, sharing stories of resilience. Lily grew, her laughter echoing the ranch. We hosted holidays, blending traditions, mom's pies, dad's tales, Sarah's games,
Alex capturat moments.
albums of healing. A final mystery, anonymous donor aiding the shelter where I volunteered, turned out to be Jake.
Paying forward.
Smiled at the circle. Lesson reinforced. Life's drama resolves with humanity. Reject revenge. Embrace growth. My story? Proof positive.